Idyllwild Arts respectfully acknowledges the Kawishpa Kawiakna, also known as Kaweah Band of Indians, and all 9 sovereign bands of Kaweah people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and continue to steward this land for all future generations.
Idyllwild Arts Foundation is proud to present One World, One Idyllwild, the series. In conversation with Pamela Jordan, the series brings together thought leaders, creatives, influencers, and changemakers, highlighting the work of citizen artists whose careers and lives have been shaped by the transformative power of art.
Have the courage to lead.
The best thing that ever happened to me was the Northridge earthquake.
Artists throughout the world, we are the speakers of truth. We are the most authentic expression of the day, of the times.
Be determined to get the most you can from every opportunity. And where you don't see opportunities, ask for them.
Great leaders recognize that the work requires urgent patience.
You can learn about classroom management, you can learn about the new curriculum, you can learn about the new way to teach whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if those students feel that love, they're more likely to listen, they're more likely to trust, they're more likely to be vulnerable. And in that space, that's where you can change some kid's life.
From Idyllwild Arts Foundation in Idyllwild, California, I'm Pamela Jordan with One World, One Idyllwild, the series. My guest today is John Daversa, Chair of Studio Music and Jazz at the Frost School of Music at the University of Miami. John is an internationally respected performer, composer, arranger, producer, band leader, educator, and recording artist. In 2019, he won 3 Grammys for American Dreamers, Voices of Hope, Music of Freedom, including Best Large Jazz Ensemble, Best Instrumental Arrangement, and Best Improvised Jazz Solo. Dr. Daversa's celebrated career has included appearances on The Today Show, Late Night with David Letterman, The Oprah Winfrey Show, as well as such musical gatherings as the Montreal Jazz Festival and the Playboy Jazz Festival. He has recorded with such notable and distinguished artists as Herbie Hancock, Fiona Apple, Sheryl, and the Yellowjackets. John Daversa, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It is my pleasure.
And I also want to thank you for being a part of this year's Idyllwild Arts Jazz in the Pines 2021 Student Clinic. Jazz in the Pines it has been going for 27 years, and the pandemic disrupted it a little bit, but it's turning into a 2-week festival where artists such as yourself will be able to work with our students. So I want to thank you so much for being here with us for this.
Again, I'm grateful to be here, and it's truly an honor to be here on this in this sacred land and working with these students and working with the music that I love.
So we're all really happy to return to campus after the pandemic drove us into shelter in place for nearly 16 months. And you're having an incredible career as a performer, teacher, composer, as I said previously. What drives you, and how has that changed during the pandemic?
What drives me? I mean, it's since I can remember. So, I remember being 4 years old, 5 years old, maybe even a couple years old. When I would wake up, I hear music in my head. I remember being 4 or 5 years old and listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire and pounding the crud out of pillows with my drumsticks. Oh, just fire! It was all consuming because it just brought me to a state of bliss. And before I go to sleep, I hear music in my head. So that's the drive, and how that's evolved as I've matured as a human being is I feel that music is such a powerful vehicle, and to be really intentional about the music that we create. I feel like when we disturb the silence with anything, there needs to be a reason for it, and it continues to just go around the earth and never stop. So whatever I do, I want it to be of benefit to everyone. So whatever the music is that I create, I want it to be very intentional. That's something that's evolved. And then over this this year and a half, I think the way that I felt about it was that it felt like a huge fire, this vortex that we were all in, and it's just humanity within this fire, and no one is going to escape it. And everyone has, just like every individual human being on this planet has unique challenges and gifts. And so everyone's going through this fire and they've got to burn off what no longer serves. Whatever your issues are, or even just the things that no longer serve your life, those things are going to burn off, and you can acknowledge it and surrender to that and work on it. Or you can go kicking and screaming, but you're going to go through it. So all of those things certainly apply to me, and it's really made me reevaluate the music that I want to make and how important it is to me that I make music. And it really made me cherish my family and, really look at my values and exactly what I want to do with my life moving forward. It put all of those priorities in right in front of my face, and I'm so grateful for that, because it's a path for us all toward evolution.
How did you feel, we all kind of hunkered down and thought this is going to be a couple of weeks, maybe it'll be a month, and, the time went on. And we haven't talked much about spirituality, but I know you slow walk. How did meditation or spirituality, how did you stay centered, throughout, especially as it evolved and it was clear we were in it for some time?
Well, thankfully, that's something that I've been, I knew was very important to me for a long time now. So, I've had a practice where I, every morning I get up really early and do some meditation, and I do some, either yoga or just, do a workout to take care of my mind and my body. Because, the responsibilities as you get older, you have more and more responsibilities, and I'm serving the community that I'm in. My students, my family, my work, the music, and those are things that are very important to me. So in order for me to serve the way that I know I'm called to do, I have to take care of myself first. So, as I tell my students, one thing that's important to me is that when I wake up in the morning, I do not look at a phone. I don't look at emails. I certainly don't look at the news or any external influence that I'm not ready to process yet. I need to actually find my own grounding for that day through my own practice, and then I have a tremendous amount of energy to handle those things during the day. And then same thing at night. I try and do the bookend of that at night, just a little bit softer with, I may do just a little qigong practice at night, and then prepare myself for the next day. So as we moved into this last year and a half, I felt like it actually gave me a little bit more space to be regular with that, because keeping that schedule when I'm traveling all the time and keeping a fairly intense schedule of traveling and commitments, you have to really be creative about working all those things in.
That's beautiful, and I know that we have students here, and it's so important to hear about balance in your life, and that's one thing that is very, very special about Idyllwild Arts. We're nestled here in the San Jacinto Mountains, 6,000 feet, on this beautiful Kauai, as you say, sacred land. And I think when the students, whether here for summer, for a few weeks, or here for our boarding program, I think that's something that they, as you speak to alums or speak to students as they're leaving, they talk about this sense of place and what that did for them. And to hear you talk about that, I hope they carry that and develop that into their practice. As a human being, here we say art is the greatest teacher of humanity.
Yes. And when I speak highly of this place, I really mean it. I've come here in years past for Jazz in the Pines to perform. I've done the summer camp now. This is the 4th year. We weren't able to come here in person last year, but it is such a privilege to come here, and I do feel experientially that this is sacred land here. And it's a place where it's really a retreat for me to be in this energy, and also with faculties that are so open-minded and students that are so open-minded, where we can actually make some progress together.
Right.
So it's a very special place, and I turned down other things to be here because this is just an incredibly recharging, recalibrating vortex on the earth.
I agree. That was not a commercial. That's how we really feel about Idyllwild. Well, in 2016, you received 3 Grammy nominations for Kaleidoscope Eyes, Music of the Beatles. And Terence Blanchard said after hearing Kaleidoscope Eyes, "This is art. This is what music should be. No recreation, no mimicking, just honesty. Fearless honesty." His comment resonated with me because, of course, the music of the Beatles is so iconic. How did you decide which songs to include, and were there any that you felt were off limits? Just tell us about that project and how you selected those pieces.
Well, I was actually talking to the students about it the other night. It was part of it was, yes, I love the music of the Beatles, and a lot of those, it's just so, the melodies are iconic, and they're beautiful, and the melodies can be adapted to work in so many different ways. It's like these beautifully crafted melodies, even without the words, and then you add the words and they're even more rich. So that's always attractive to me, to find material that feels like it's so malleable. So that was in place, and also at that time I felt like my bands, and especially the big band, was gaining a good amount of recognition and a good reputation here on the West Coast, but I wasn't reaching further than that with my original music, whatever that was. And I looked at how other people were breaking in, on YouTube, and everybody's covering Stevie Wonder's songs, and everyone's covering Beyonce, and their videos would get 1 million views. It's like, okay, so that's, you have to dangle the shiny object, get people to look, and then if it's good, then you can continue, then you've got that audience and you can keep going. So that was part of it too. It was a bit of a strategy as well. The other component of it was that one of the people that used to come see us play the Baked Potato in LA. We played there the last Sunday of every month in LA. And he and his business partner had bought 4 of the old Beatles tunes. Misery, and I Saw Her Standing There, and I can't remember what else. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, we just did this, and I would really love, I don't have a big band recording of this that I have the license for, but even though I have the license for the song, would you record something? Would you arrange something, do it your way?" And he was a big fan of the band, and I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it." And then I started to think, okay,
This is it.
I know that we would be the 1 billionth and 2 artists to cover Beatles music, but I think I can do it a different way. I think I can do it our way. And so there's a bit of a challenge to it, because how do you approach these iconic songs in a fresh, innovative way? And so that kind of that challenge felt good to me. So then, and you asked what was the process of choosing songs, and so one summer I was already in Miami, and I just started listening to the whole catalog, and of course I started trying to categorize everything. So okay, well maybe we could just do these tunes from this record or this period, or I'll do all tunes that start with M, there are almost 300 songs to choose from. But I would listen in the middle of the night, because my daughter was very young, and that's the time when everybody was asleep. So I would go deep into it, and I would listen to all the interviews with all the band members, and read all the interviews, and listen to the production. I could hear what's panning on left to right, and I just went in as deep as I could in just researching and listening to the music. And And then I let it go. And then I had all my notes and all my cognitive ways of organizing everything. That all went out the door because I just started to hear one song. I would hear that song come back to me like a download through my own experiences and preferences and personality and character, and it was just something new. And they all came to me in different ways. You know, my favorite story is, and by the way, all of this was written on airplanes because that's the time when I had to write. So I had the earphones on and I was, writing directly into the digital software, all of these things. And so I remember sitting catty corner to this other gentleman who was, a row in front of me, but on the other side. And he was watching this this movie. I don't know what it was, but it was a lot of folks were getting killed, and it wasn't pretty. And there were kids on the airplane, young kids, and I was thinking, maybe a different movie would be a good one to watch right now. And then I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna send this guy a message, telepathically. I'm gonna say, change the channel. And so I just kind of thought about that, meditated on that, opened my eyes, and he did it. And I was like, whoa, I've got Jedi powers right now. Let's see how far we can take this. And I said, okay, so now go to your iTunes library and choose a Beatles tune for me, because I want to know what the next tune is. So all this stuff it happened. I swear to you it happened. So he clicks on to iTunes, and I'm like, whoa, what planet am I on? And he goes there, and he's got every album in his iTunes catalog on the plane. And he's like scrolling up and down, Sgt. Pepper, and finally, after a while, he finally chooses one of the records. So he goes on, Here Comes the Sun. And that's the one I was already wanting to do anyway. I just wanted somebody to validate that. He clicked on Here Comes the Sun, listened to it for about 20 seconds, clicked out of iTunes, and then went back to watching his gory movie. But I said, okay, message delivered. I got it. So, so many of the tunes came to me in those wondrous ways.
What a wonderful story. Yeah. What a wonderful story about being present, right? Being mindful. And I also love the way that story is linked to your surroundings. There were children around, right? And how you were aware of that. What a wonderful story. That makes me I want to ask about you, a little bit about growing up. I want to ask about your family. Because many people are probably familiar with your father, Jay Daversa, who is described as one of the most recorded trumpet players in the history of the recording industry. That's amazing. Tell us about your earlier years and the role that music played in your life. I think you just had a very musical family. And did you always know you were going to be a musician? Did you ever entertain, being an astronaut or something?
Architect. Yeah. Okay. So that's actually, and the record that I did last year was actually all about family and a testament to growing up in a musical family. Because when the quarantine happened, we were already gonna make this record, but then in June of last year, we all got together and said, let's do this, and it's a bolero record. And
so tell everybody the name of it. I was gonna Quarantina. Yeah.
Quarantena. Quarantine with family at home, because the elephant in the room about recording it at this time was we're all stuck with our family and having to deal with living together again, and there are gifts and challenges with that. But it really gave me the opportunity to just give a huge, big hug to these people that I just adore and love, and it gave me a chance to really reconnect with my parents and their parents. And so there are songs on the record that are written by my grandfathers, both maternal and paternal, and songs that my father has written dedications to my wife, my daughter, and all of these things. It was really a special opportunity to make a record like that. Anyway, my dad is so both my parents are incredible musicians, and so that I'm so blessed to have that influence when I was growing up. My dad started playing the trumpet when he was 4.5 years old.
The trumpet.
Yeah, the bugle, actually. I think the story goes that his uncle came over Halloween or a costume party or something like that, and he was dressed up as a bugler, in the army. And he had a bugle, and he couldn't get a sound out of it, and they gave it to Dad, and he went, like he was able to make a good sound out of it, and that was it. And then, he just started practicing. He loved it. It was just a part of him from and it still is, from that point on, and was a bit of a child prodigy. And he was on a TV show on KTLA in LA. They had a variety show for a couple years, and they would have Dinah Shore come on, and Stan Kenton, and Ray Bolger, and it was the Dixieland Small Fry. And there was all, kind of teenagers in the band, and then he went off, he was in the Army for a couple years, and then he started working. I think he toured with Johnny Mathis and maybe somebody else. He was on tour with Stan Kenton and made one of the most influential records for me was Stan Kenton. It's that Dee Barton wrote all the music. It's called Stan Kenton Conducts the Jazz Compositions of Dee Barton, the longest album title ever. But it was kind of like a free jazz. It was 1968, 1969. And he sounds unbelievable on this record, and Ray Reed plays alto saxophone on it. And it really opened the way that I heard music, hearing that record. It's one of those records you see at home, what is that thing? Put it on, it's like, oh, that's some stuff. But then he went into the studios. He started working in the LA studios, and he played on every, he does what, Wayne Bergeron's here working the camp this week, and Wayne's been doing it for the last 20, 30 years, and Dad is the generation before, and he played every television show, every movie, every live show, at the amphitheater, and all those game shows and variety. Like he was on the Gong Show and Name That Tune, and Sonny and Cher and Jim Nabors' show, all the Carol Burnett. So.
And that's chops. I mean, you're recording. That's not.
Yeah, and it was incredibly stressful, I believe, for him. He's talked about that before, and that's that's part of my story too. Is as a kid I saw how stressful that was, and there was a part of me that was like, I don't want that. Music, I love music, but I don't want to feel so prickly about it, because studio musicians, they go in, they miss a note, that's it. Time is money. Next player that's not going to crack the note. So he was doing so much work that I think that he's an incredibly creative being, and he wasn't able to have enough balance where he could have the creative outlet along with his professional career. So I witnessed that, and also all of his friends would come over for dinner, and they'd talk about that session today and how somebody messed up and how they didn't get paid enough, and like it seemed like a very negative atmosphere to me. This is, from a 7-year-old. This is my own reality, so I don't know if that's actually what happened, but that's kind of what I remember.
Kind of seeing the business end of it as a 7-year-old, understanding,
Yeah. And then, again, from the 7-year-old perspective, my mom. So my mom is this incredibly talented person, one of those people that you would just hate, because, is this a flute? Oh, cool, that's cool. She sang opera as well, and her main instrument is the piano. Great classical piano player, can sight read anything. She was an incredible flute player, and dancer, and all of these things. And what I learned from her, what I observed from her, was that music was fun. Music was to be shared. Music was a social thing. Music was something that brought people together. And my mom, if you met her, she's one of those people. She would walk in and she's just glowing sunshine, and she genuinely wants to know everyone in the room, and she makes friends with everybody, and you'll have her phone number at the end of the night, and she'll keep in touch with you in a very genuine way. So I saw this one side on from my mom where music was just this joy, this love. My dad had that joy and love too, but I saw how the business kind of took a lot of that out of him. And so that, and by the way, and you're asking about the rest of my family too, like their parents were musicians. My mom's family, they're all music teachers.
So this was a fait accompli, everybody.
Yeah, a little bit, and you know, and my dad's dad was a Sicilian. He played accordion and sang, and that's what we did after dinner. We played music together, and my great grandfather played accordion, from Sicily, and sang and drank some wine and played the accordion. So that all that influence was there. But then growing up, you asked, did I always know I was going to be a musician? So I did it because I loved it, since I can remember. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Got some recognition doing it. Oh, that brought me some love too. It's like, okay, I'm good at this. People think I'm good at this, so that felt good too, and I had to kind of wrestle with that later. And then I think in my junior year in high school, I went, wait a minute. So I'm gonna have to make a living doing this. I see these two examples from my parents. I don't think I want to do that because that seemed like it. I don't know if I want to do that. And then my mom did it, but she didn't really make a living doing it. She just did it because it was fun, even though she played at a professional level. And I made a good decision and a bad decision in the same moment. I said, well, I'm going to play music because if I did anything else, I would be unhappy. I was smart enough to know that. I had this fire, this passion. If I did anything else, I would just be depressed. So I'm glad I pat myself on the back, and even, my parents were like, okay, because they knew the road too. But the other part that kind of makes me laugh, but I decided I was going to be a starving musician. And why? Because I wanted to only do the music I wanted to do. I didn't want to go play the movie thing. I did, I played, when the phone called, I would go and do it, sure. But it wasn't what was driving me. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And somehow that equated to me that I wasn't going to make money, and that was okay. And so that's exactly what I did. I became a starving musician. I didn't make much money.
Living the
Yeah,
dream.
yeah. And what happened with that too, it's something I love to share with my students. I actually went to UCLA for college, and I studied classical composition because I didn't want to go to a jazz school because I already knew I was going to do that no matter what. I wanted to learn something I didn't know anything about, and I'm really glad about that decision too. And I wrote for everybody's recital. I was writing all the time. You need me to write a piece for your recital? You got it.
So you were enjoying school?
I was enjoying school until I didn't. And because then, I think it was my fourth year of school, I was taking a GE, and I remember the feelings. I had my backpack on my shoulder, and I was walking into the I could not get my body into the building because I just didn't want to be there. There was this polar magnet that just wouldn't let me in, so I dropped out.
Just like that?
I slow walked down the hill, back down into Westwood. And at that point, that's when I kind of said, okay, I'm a starving artist. But I started, that's where the discipline came in though too, because I did exactly what I wanted to do. I started writing at 6 o'clock, and I went from 6 to noon every day. And I had a list of all the things in case I ever forgot what I wanted to write. Like, I'm going to write a fugue, I'm going to write this big band chart, I'm going to write this string quartet. This is what I do, 6 to noon. I had some lunch, and then I'd practice for 3-4 hours.
You were living at home because you were broke.
I was living in my own house, and I was teaching, and I was gigging at night, but I was making like $100, $50 at night. I was just scraping by. It was happy times, but it's like, where's this going? And to the point where I was doing so much teaching that at one point somebody gave me a call and said, hey, would you like to be the musical director? Actually, the way that it happened, they said, would you like to do this big production show in Europe? I know the way that it happened was they called and said, do you know anybody that would like to do this big production ice skating show in Europe? And I said, I'll think about that, because I already had a big band in town, so people knew me as a leader, a starving leader, but a leader. And I called him back the next day and I said, you know what? I'll do it myself if you'll make me the musical director. And I think I gave him, a money, a quote, what I would do it for. And he called my bluff and he said, you got it. I said, okay, so I'm going to Europe. So I had to pack everything up, put it in storage. And I went to Europe and did this show. It was supposed to be for 9 months. I ended up staying for 3 years. And it was the best of times and the worst of times because I had been this creative fireball since I don't know what age. I went and started playing that show, and I'm playing the same show every night, and that flame went out in 2 weeks. Wow. And it was scary. My whole identity was out. And it was still as long ago where there still were CD stores, and I would go and buy all these CDs and try to get the inspiration. I was trying to write, trying to practice, but it's just all mechanical. There was no inspiration. And I was making more money than I'd ever made before. So that messed with my head. So I can play music that doesn't have any inspiration to me, and I'll make a lot of money, or I can play music that has a lot of inspiration to me, but I don't make any money. Things got really really hardwired that way at that point. And at the same time, in 2 weeks in, a couple things happened. One is I realized how much I love teaching. One of the reasons why I left.
When you were in Europe, you realized.
Yeah, I realized, okay, I love working with people, working on their music and seeing their voices come to fruition. And so I said, okay, when I come back, I'm going to go back to school because I want to do this at the highest level. I have to get these degrees to do this at the college level, at the university level. And so when I came back, it was full force. I went back, finished my degree at UCLA and took my math class at 8 o'clock in the morning and the art history of China and my geology class, and I was at those professors' office hours every time. They're like, here comes this guy again. And I was so curious. I was like, why does this professor wear this bow tie like that? It's hilarious to me, and I want to know why. And he's so passionate about those rocks in that geology class. I want to know why, because I wanted to get my passion back. I was going at it like that. And also 2 weeks into being in Europe, I met my wife too. So it was the best of times. And we would, when we were on tour, we'd stay in the large cities for a month or longer. And even the small little cities in Europe, we'd stay there for a week. So I'd rent an apartment in town, and I felt like I was in this, kind of half lived there. And I go to the same cafe in the morning and get to know the people. And I had a great time, but the music was just done. So after I'd finished that 3-year tour, and I made some money, but my head was all messed up, I came back and I went back to school. I finished the degree at UCLA, but then I went to CalArts. And that's where things started to shift for me, because I knew I had to go and surround myself with really creative people that were, thinking outside the box and innovating, and anything goes. And that really helped. And then a funny thing happened to me, because during that period, it wasn't like a click thing, but during that period, I started to understand the value of music, but also the value that I have to offer the world through my passion, through my gift. And that value, you can attach a monetary number to it. It's worth something. And so that tweak in my head was it. And once that settled in my head, I started getting work in a much more effortless way. And it was work that I was engaged in. And it was work that I was passionate about. And it's just a miracle to me how that all just psychologically, spiritually, mentally had to turn 180, and the wiring went back to the way that it is. So now I understand, and it's something that's still in progress. But I understand the value that I bring to the world with what I have to offer.
It's so important, and I want to thank you for sharing that story. I've been in education over 30 years, and working with high school students, and so often, especially as artists, they're really wrestling with, do I go to college? Do I stay in college? I can do better if I go out on my own. And I think just sharing that process, and that it wasn't just a through line, like you knew this, you knew this, you knew this. If you weren't in Europe, you may not have been in that silence enough, and been in that space to hear that passion and to know not to take it for granted and how to feed it. That's a beautiful story. Let's take a break. If you're just joining us, my guest today is world-renowned performer, educator, and recording artist, John Daversa. We'll be right back.
Idyllwild Arts Academy is an independent boarding arts high school whose mission is to change lives through the transformative power of art. Located just 2 hours inland from Los Angeles and San Diego and 1 hour from Palm Springs, the school sits on 205 acres of forested land in the San Jacinto Mountains. Academy students receive a challenging college preparatory academic curriculum while engaging in pre-professional training in their chosen arts discipline. The school is also home to its world-renowned summer program that serves children starting at age 5 through adults age 95. Idyllwild Arts believes that art is the greatest teacher of humanity, and that the practice of creativity, no matter the ultimate expression, hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. To learn more, visit idyllwildarts.org. Use code OneWorld2023 to receive a $50 discount to the 2023 Kids and Teens Summer Program. Quantities are limited and restrictions may apply.
Welcome back. My guest today is 3-time Grammy winner John Daversa. I want to ask you, we were talking a little bit about the album that you made, Quarantine. So, and you were talking about that, and I think you released that in 2020. Yeah. But in 2021, also during the pandemic, you released All Without Words, Variations Inspired by Lauren. It's a beautiful album. I've been listening to it. It's beautiful. Tell us about the album. Who is Lauren? And it was actually quite encompassing, just choir and visual arts. Tell us about that effort.
Yeah. So the piece is it's an orchestral jazz concerto of sorts. So it's got a full string section, woodwinds, percussion, and a choir, and trumpet. And my dear friend, whose name is Justin Morel, who we've known each other since we were 0, because his father is a great guitar player and played in the LA studios. And so John Morel and Jay Daversa were good friends. And so when Justin and I came around, our families were already together. So Justin and I grew up playing music together. And so Justin is a brilliant composer. And he comes from the jazz world, but he speaks orchestral and all of that as well. His son is 16 years old, and he's nonverbal on the spectrum. And so I was with Justin. He lives up in Pennsylvania now. And he picked me up from the airport, and we were talking about, some of his projects, and I said, you got to write, you got to write this experience. The love and the pain and the frustration and the joy and everything in between. should be expressed in music. And so we talked about creating a project together that would be an orchestral jazz concerto, trumpet concerto. And so we kind of joked about it to begin with, or I was, and then he started sending me sketches. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
So all of this was within this year.
He started writing it probably 2 years ago. And then I knew, okay, I'm going to make this happen. I don't know how I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen. This was pre-pandemic. I don't know how I'm going to make this happen. And so what Justin did, his process, and this is the first record I've ever put out that's not my own writing. There's probably one person I would trust to do that with, and that's Justin. Never a question in my mind about what the music would be like. So one day or one evening, sometimes Lauren will kind of hum and make sounds, and so he recorded this on the iPad, and this became a theme, and he derived some melodies from what Lauren was singing. And so the whole album is a theme and variations. It's the theme and then 11 variations. And all the titles suggest all of those trials that you go through when you find out that you have a child with autism. In every case, Justin makes the point very clearly that every case is so unique. There's no group. There's no. Everybody's experience is completely different, and I really love the idea that we can raise awareness and compassion to the fact that every human being on this planet has their own challenges and gifts that they're going through, and for us to remind ourselves never to judge what those challenges and gifts are. Just be aware and be compassionate to the human narrative. So he wrote this brilliant piece, and he sent it over, and I said, oh my God. And so then I put it together somehow. We recorded it in Miami in January, and I was able to book the big concert hall, and we took a string section that was, about a third of what it should be, and we just overdubbed, them taking several passes of it. And we did the same thing with the woodwinds, and then we did the same thing with the choir, and I played my trumpet parts, and we got it done. And even my role as playing the trumpet, I felt there's such a responsibility there, right? It had nothing to do with me. It couldn't. And so I just had to allow this surrender to these sounds coming through me. I had to just be a vessel. And so some of the things I played on that record, like I don't know where that came from. And I was really connecting with Lauren somehow on a few of those things. And it really was a kind of a download playing through these pieces. And I'm so happy for Justin. Everybody should know his musicianship and his writing. And I think this is helping with that. And I hope that it achieves at least part of what I'm thinking about raising awareness and compassion.
I believe when I was doing some research with it, you all also brought in visual artists who had autism.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful drawings and.
Yeah. I thought, why, let's try and. So we reached out to an organization called Art of Autism down in LA, and they have so many visual artists, different media, painting on an iPad or actually on canvas or tapestries. And we want to celebrate their art. So what we did is we sent them the music, the visual artists, and they created their art listening to the music. And we haven't released them yet, but there are videos that have been made and are still being made for all 12 tracks of the artists actually creating to the music.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I hope that it celebrates their artistry as well. So there's a website that's allwithoutwords.org where you can see many of the artists and see their work right there.
You talked earlier about, your passion, that really has to be central to what you're doing. And I came across, you won the 3 Grammys for American Dreamers, Voices of Hope, Music of Freedom. And for those who don't know, this album featured DACA artists, and you traveled around the country to include them. Tell us, I want to ask you some pointed questions, but there's such interesting projects, right? You traveled the country, they were from so many different, you traveled the United States and they were from so many different countries. And I want to know what drove you to that and what your experience was connecting with those artists. And maybe also how you feel that the album made a difference. I mean, it won Grammys and it really elevated the topic. So, see, I want to know everything.
There were 53 dreamers that were involved on that project.
Wow.
And I traveled to 17 states, and they were from 17 birth countries.
How did you identify them?
We tracked the main part of the record in Miami, and we had about 12, maybe a few more dreamers join us there. And then I already had engagements booked where I was traveling to, New York, Texas, Oklahoma, California, everywhere, to perform or do whatever I was doing. And so I would contact the DACA organizations from those states, those cities, and say, hey, we're making this record, and we were looking for musicians, that could contribute on the record, but and some, many of the artists that contributed were very accomplished musicians, and some they just sang in the choir, and so I had to write in, into the music some choir places where anybody could join in and just be part of it or play percussion, and just be part of it, be part of the movement, right? And even with this narrative, I never, I am not a political person, but it's one of those things where you read in the paper and you just see the human story, and you just say, okay, this is my own view, these are human beings that were brought here to the States when they were 1 year old. They were 8 years old, and for whatever reasons, for medical treatment, their parents passed away, maybe someone that brought them over, their grandfather, they actually went back and left them. And basically these people, they went to school here, they work here. This is the only home that they know. To deport them to, this other place would be taking them to a place they've never known. And so they have, and they have no path for citizenship, and they want to contribute to this country that they live in, and they don't have a path to do so. So I looked at that and I kind of went, I don't know about that. And so with the record, all I wanted to do was say, did you know about this? Take a look and make up your own mind. I mean, yes, I'm biased, I have an opinion, but I don't mean to force that on anyone. I'm just saying, here's this human story. And I would travel to many of these places, and once I would connect with the dreamers, then I'd have to find a place to record, right? Yeah. So when I would find a place to record, I'd have to say, so this is what we're doing. And they would say, what's the DACA Act? What is this? And I was like, wow, okay, so this is great. So now you know about it, to be aware of it, and you can make up your own mind, do your own research, and see what you feel about it. And I felt really great about that. And then, of course, I got to meet these incredible, courageous young human beings and get to know their story. And now, that was, what was it, 2018 or something like that?
19, I think, yeah.
So we recorded it the year.
Won the Grammy in 19.
Right. So I've known them for a few years now, and I've been following their lives, and we stay in contact. And this person got married, and this person is got a whole rap career happening, and some amazing people, amazing people. And I'm so proud to be even associated with all of them.
Do you, the Grammys, they really were a big deal and really did elevate, obviously, the cause, the topic. What do you think the impact of the album is, though, beyond that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think about that a lot. I think it certainly, for me, just in a personal way, for everyone that contributed to that record, it was at least somebody saying, I see you, I love you, and you belong. Because all the other messages are saying something otherwise. And I think, I'm not sure how much more awareness it raised, but it had to have done something.
And continue to do something. And continue to speak to the human condition. You have an incredible career. I like to say you're in the middle of it. I hope it's a long stretch in front of you. But you teach. And in our case, you come and teach high school students.
Yeah.
Why? What do you love about teaching? What draws you into it?
I love music. I love music, and I love people, and I love connecting through that expression. It's hard to. That's amazing. Thank you. And then it makes me listen a little bit differently, and then I hope that I do feel a call to. I know for whatever reason, I can be of some inspiration to musicians. It's always kind of been there, and so I feel a call to be of service. It makes me feel purposeful to be in service. And I say in service, and it's hard for me to even say because I just enjoy it so much. I love, when someone comes in with a composition and it's like, it's awesome. And then have you ever thought about just doing that to it, and to feel that vortex open up, opens up for them, it opens up for me, and so we're in it together. So it's a real collaboration and connected feeling. It's like being in the zone, when we're all connecting in that way, when the light bulbs go off.
John Daversa, thank you so much for being my guest and for speaking with me today. It has been an honor.
Mutual, thank you.
I spoke with John Daversa on July 15, 2021, in front of a live audience during the Jazz in the Pines 2021 Student Clinic on the campus of Idyllwild Arts Academy in Idyllwild, California. You've been listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, presented by Idyllwild Arts Foundation. We at Idyllwild Arts have always believed that art is the greatest teacher of humanity. We continue to believe that the practice of creativity hones a person's desire and ability to affect global change. My name is Pamela Jordan.
To learn more about the Academy and its world-renowned summer program, please visit idyllwildarts.org. To subscribe to the One World, One Idyllwild podcast, please visit idyllwildarts.org/the series. Please consider supporting the students of Idyllwild Arts by visiting idyllwildarts.org/giving to make a gift today. Thank you for listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, a creation and production of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Executive producer, Pamela Jordan. Directed and produced by Rose Colella. Edited, engineered, and mastered by Justin Holmes. Graphic design by Mark Biley. Marketing and Publicity by Dana Albright, Molly Maple, and Alice Metcalf. Marketing Assistance by Rose Colella. Production and Research Assistance by Keith Miller. Creative Consultation by Palencia Turner. Technical Support, John Lawrence, Michael Quick, and Tom Wadbrook. Our theme song is Beaconing, composed and performed by the incomparable Marshall Hawkins. Pamela Jordan was appointed president of Idyllwild Arts Foundation in 2014. Prior to this position, she held the distinction of being the first female and first African American head of school of the Chicago Academy for the Arts, a position she held for 12 years. She currently serves on the boards of the California Association of Independent Schools, the Association of Boarding Schools, and Art Schools Network. Pamela is also a member of the Global Education Advisory Council for Shanghai Hauer Collegiate School, Kushan. One World, One Idyllwild, the series, is a production of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Any use of materials, including reproduction, modification, distribution, or republication without the prior written consent of Idyllwild Arts Foundation is strictly prohibited.